I have the 360 engine clean, and it's ready for a dingleberry hone. You can kind of see why it's called the dingleberry hone. Once I do that, I'll wipe the cylinders down really good with brake clean, and then the engine will be ready to assemble. So I'll do a little bit more on that whenever I get ready to do that, and talk about the speeds that I find that works good to get the good crosshatch. The intake manifold is still a little dirty. It's just been cleaned with purple power. I'm going to go through and media blast this and then paint it. I think I'm going to paint it the same color as the engine and the heads. So I'll clean the water pump housing as well and get that painted. So I also have some parts ready for a parts washer clean. Main caps, timing chain, it's pretty new double roller and in good condition, so I'm going to clean that and all the other little bolts and accessories. I'm going to clean this pickup tube that I had laying around that goes with my 8-quart pan, and then clean the windage tray that goes with all this. So haven't quite made it to the timing cover yet, but I might media blast that whenever I do the intake manifold in this oil pan that's been laying around for a little while. So this is the 8-quart Moroso pan that I'll be using with that pickup tube and oil pump system. Fits a car, so that should work out pretty good. And then the other thing that I'm about to clean, like what I did the engine, is clean up the heads. They were in good condition. They should still be in good condition. So I'm just going to clean the outside and prep them for paint. I got one cylinder head cleaned up. So I did all my surfaces, purple powered it down, and did my brake clean on it. So I've done these heads before. As you can see, I polished out the chambers, removing any high spots that are in there. That'll help with detonation. These are the Keith Black 9.8 pistons with a stock head, which that's what this is. So I want to make sure I can run as much time as possible. So I have done some work to these heads. I've done some porting, intake exhaust porting on them. The big gain is actually doing a bowl port, which you can't see because that's behind the valves. So this is a 360 J head, as you can see there. And it's the upside down 587 casting. So not a bad base to go with, but in reality, as much money as you can spend redoing these heads, valves, guide seats, all that stuff, you could go to Indy and get a set of good iron heads for about $1,000, and it'd blow these out of the water. Even with the porting I've done, I don't think I'd match those heads out of the box. I have the cylinders honed on this side anyway. I was going to show the cross hatching. It should be a 45-degree cross hatch between the two hatches, but I can't get it to pick up on my phone camera. So after honing these out, it's really dirty, so I use the soapy water and clean it out real good with just some soap and warm water and a rag that you're going to throw away. After I do that, I take my brake clean and hose it down and wipe it down with paper towels, and just keep cleaning that until they come out clean. So on this operation, I use paper towels because, well, I go through a lot of them, and this isn't the final anyway. I'm going to go through and do a final wipe down with engine oil whenever I assemble it, so that I get all the lint and everything out of there. So that's the hone that I used. That's about how many rags I used on the one side of it. So the hone I'm using is a flex hone, and they have instructions on here, which is pretty good. So it followed it as best as I could using a 1030 oil, guesstimating what the RPMs are since drills don't have tachometers on them. And I did the strokes that they said for the first about 12 seconds. And then after that, to get the 45 degree, I had to, well, basically run it up and down as fast as I could to try to get a 45 degree crosshatch that I have on there for the last few seconds. So in painting the engine, I was debating whether to use my little detail gun or just use the big gun right here. And that decision was made whenever I was looking at my paint. So I checked out my hardener. It's good and liquid. Went to my Eastwood Nano ceramic paint here, and it wasn't quite so liquid. I looked down in there and it's like, well, that's not exactly what I wanted to see right there. So I guess I'll be rattle canning the engine. Have some of the VHT I'll be using on this one. Same thing, Chrysler blue, and see how that turns out. Well, it's finally time to start assembling the engine. I'm done with all the cleaning stuff, and now it's time to do the fun stuff. I like using these 3 books when I build a small block Mopar. Each 3 has different things in it that I like to use. Whenever I do this 302 over here in the Mustang, I'll have to pick me up some more books. I have the Hayes book for it, but I want to do some how to hot ride books. These are some pretty good series for any of your engines that you're working on. They make them for most stuff. So I want to go over some of the components I'm going to be doing next. I'm about to put the rings on the pistons, so I'll need a the ring installer right here. Here's the Hastings rings. These are the ones I'm going to use. You have a package of top rings, second rings, and then the oil control rings. These are a 3-piece setup right here. So once I get all that together, I can use some of my assembly lube on the wrist pin. The Lucas is what I've been using, but I found this driven engine assembly grease that also works on the flat tappet cams. So I'll be using that on the camshaft for sure. So I have all my pistons cleaned up, ready to assemble. I also got my engine bearings in, so I'll be doing the crankshaft as well and installing that. Now the main bearings installed, they're cleaned out, air hosed off. Same with the crankshaft. I've already gone through and used the plastic gauge. This engine's actually a little loose, but for what I'm using it for, it's not something I'm going to stick in a vehicle I'm going to drive all the time and try to get another 100,000 miles out of it. So it should work for what I got. So everything's nice and clean. What I'm going to do now is come back and I think I'll use my Lucas, try to use that up, then I'll be going to the driven engine assembly grease once that gets used up. And I'm going to lube every surface, all the bearings, the crankshaft, drop that down in there and tap those in. The other thing, if you noticed, I have studs on some of these. I'm going to come in and make sure those holes are good and clean and Loctite the studs in, blue Loctite the studs in. Some of the Loctites you can get are pretty permanent, and I don't want to do that. Eventually I'll disassemble this and maybe rebuild it again one day. I don't know.